A lot of times when we get nervous, we tend to rush. So, it's so important. A way to slow down is by using that open vowel method when you're rehearsing. Also, to really make eye contact with whoever you're talking to and make sure they're.
Have you ever wondered why you need a voice coach? Why you should be taking voice classes? Well, today we have a wonderful voice coach who is going to answer all those questions, and she's going to give us a little mini masterclass. So get ready. I'm Lydia Nicole, and this is Acting Smarter Now. Many actors train, they take acting classes, they do scene studies, they are doing monologue classes, all kind of classes for acting, but they never take voice classes. They don't
Mhm.
see the value in it. Tell me what the value in taking a voice class or studying voice to train yourself. What is the importance of it?
Oh my God, it's so important. It's everything. Your voice is your communication. Your voice is what people hear. And there are just so many ways that your voice can complement what you're doing acting wise. A lot of people don't realize that by using different vocal techniques, by using pitch and rhythm variation and really slowing down and connecting and using your whole body. You're the instrument. So yes, it's essential. And I think that smart actors come to that eventually. They realize, oh my gosh, there's something that I've always wanted to do to connect vocally so that you can fully express yourself because you're using your voice usually, right? I mean, there are takes where it's just you're not saying anything if you're filming something, but your voice is pretty important for an actor.
What benefits am I going to see from taking voice along with my acting classes?
So everybody's different, right? And what I'm about is opening up your instrument. Your instrument is yourself. So we're working with the voice, but the voice, it affects you emotionally, it affects you spiritually, it affects you creatively. When you are creating an open and free sound, without tension and letting that air flow. You know, we're wind instruments, right? So, what we're after is an unimpeded passage of air, a free flow of air. And a lot of times people have the habit, first of all, of holding their breaths. So before they start, they do what we call a glottal stop, which is a really fancy way of saying they hold their breath. And what you want to do, for an example, a good exercise is to add air. That's the way I say it. Add air before you start speaking. This is homework, right? You don't do this in front of people. So you would actually say, before I say a sentence to really exaggerate that habit, because a lot of people before they speak they have the habit, especially if we're a little afraid, you know, it's opening night, you're on set, you're ready for your big take, and they take a deep breath and they think, oh, I'm breathing, and it's like the film, right? Waiting to exhale. they, your exhalation is where your relaxation is. And your exhalation allows your voice to come out freely. So if you're holding on, you're creating tension in your whole body. And that's going to affect you on every level, and certainly as an actor in your performance. So by letting your voice out freely, you can be more yourself without filters.
So I'm using my voice, but you just said something which clicked for me. It's not just the voice, it is the body. So I'm using the voice, but I'm also using my entire body in order,
Yes.
because you said the body is an instrument.
Yes.
So some people may be confused and think it's just voice.
That's right. Many. No, because I'll tell you a little, if you'd like, I can tell you my technique controlled relaxation, right? So it's based on very active body awareness, because if we're holding tension anywhere in the body, including what we think, it affects the vocal, the free passage of air, right? So what we do with my technique is a lot of free movement, a lot of free sound. We start with deep yoga breathing so that we start to be, and we do always exaggerated movements so that you start to understand quicker where you're holding tension and exactly how to release it ultimately. And when you ask how long will it take, that's a difficult question to answer because everybody's different. Everybody's growth in life is different, right? It's the same. And it's not good or bad. It's just what everyone's dealing with, something maybe a little bit different, right? And so I've had many, many people who were told, for example, oh, as far as singing, right? They were told when they were young, oh, you mouth the words, don't sing. That's very damaging to someone. It actually is very heartbreaking. And it really affects them on a very deep level. So that when we start working together and they're doing open sounds, they get connected sometimes. It's what everybody, it doesn't really matter necessarily, except maybe that's not the right term to use. Of course it matters, but some people have very emotional responses because they've been holding it together for so long, and trying to, as an actor, for example, maybe put on a good impression or get hired, or, these things that are in the backs of our minds, right? Rather than really feeling free to be totally you. And then you can do whatever character work you want to do on top of that.
So I was told I couldn't sing, to be quiet, or just mouth it. The damage that is done shows up in what ways? If I'm told not to, not to sing, just look pretty, just lip sync, basically. How does it damage me? And then how can I start to heal from that?
Right. So what happens is there's a little, and I say the word damage, and, it's maybe not so serious like that, for some people. But for most people, when you are told that, it creates this, what happens is sort of physically you clench up. Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I won't sing. There's something, it's not open, that you're not open at that point, right? And then all of your life, you have it in the back of your mind somewhere. Oh yeah, right. I'm the one. I lip sync. Oh, ha ha ha. Everybody never wants me to sing. I'm the worst. All these things, right? But if you can start to connect powerfully, openly to your voice, which has always been there, it changes you in the way that it's always been there, but you then get the confidence that was a little bit taken away from you at that time, right? So if right now you were able to sing freely and openly, how would you feel?
Well, me personally,
Yeah,
I don't care what anybody thinks. I sing no matter what.
good,
I will sing
good.
loud and wrong. I don't care. I
Oh,
am in
great.
church. I'm in church. It's like, you may not like it, but God said go for it. So I'm going for what
Good.
God said. But I do know that psychologically, when someone puts a label on you, that it does damage you, it does hurt you, it does shut you down. What is the one exercise I could start doing to start to unravel that lie? Because it's a lie, right? Everybody is not blessed with Aretha Franklin or Barbara Streisand type singing, but that doesn't
Yes.
mean we can't all express ourselves. So tell me one exercise that person who's been shut down can start doing now.
Sure, sure. Yes, and when you say those examples of Barbara Streisand and Aretha Franklin, um, what we want to do is get the most out of your vocal potential. And that's the uniqueness of you, right? So your uninhibited sound, right? And then you can fully shine and show up. So one exercise is to actually, as I mentioned, to add the HAH. Hi, I'm adding HAH before a phrase. And sometimes, too, if you have the habit of cutting off at the end of a sentence, you want to add air at the end, even if I'm not getting through the whole sentence. So I would add air now. And at the end of my sentence. And so that's a great start. And the other exercise or tip that I want to give to people is another exaggerated movement that I work with is dropping your jaw. I call it the exaggerated open vowel position. When my mouth is open and the tongue is on the lower lip, really stupid. Uh-huh. And then I add air, and I could go, and then you can go if you want to. I would do ha. You try.
Ha,
Good,
ha,
good. And then I do he.
ha,
Oh, look who along it.
ha.
Good girl. Good, good, good. And then I would do he, ho, who. Ha, he. Those are the open vowels. The closed vowels are A, E, I, O, U. And most of us hardly open our mouths when we say them, almost like a ventriloquist. By the way, most people, when they're speaking, do not open their mouths enough. So that's a great exercise to do in front of the mirror where you just see that the tongue's on the lower lip. And I don't know if everybody's familiar with this painting, The Scream, but it
Yes.
doesn't matter. You can look it up if someone isn't aware of it. But so it's like
Hmm.
the jaw is elongated. So, so we want to do all these movements fully, but never to the point of tension. So we
Okay.
want really elongate and ha, ho. There's a whole speech element that I teach where we go through the whole alphabet, B through Z, with these exaggerated open vowels. And we do what I call vocal gymnastics. That's another thing. Many people, you want to start to understand how low does your voice go? How high does it go? And so if you do this exercise with vocal gymnastics, simply you just do hubba, 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 and you can do that in the mirror. Another thing, when I'm teaching people, sometimes I'll do this, and I always say, I'm never saying no to you. It's just a great way to release tension in your neck. So, we can do little movements. I'm in a scene and maybe I raise my shoulders. No, yeah, but I'm testing my shoulders to see, oh, am I holding tension? I don't know, and then I just check and you can make it work. A big culprit is a lot of people hold tension in the back of their knees. So, by the way, if you're in the middle of a scene and you're feeling tense, make sure you are breathing. And again, what I mean by breathing is that you are exhaling. I'm not sure I said this already, but it it bears repeating if I have. Your exhalation is where your relaxation is. That's where you can let go and be present and fully present and really connect to either your scene partner, or if you're doing something for an audience, to connect to your audience.
And there's also the tendency to have the tension here. So all eh, uh, your voice is here. It all
Yes,
comes from here, right? So you're screeching. You can when you
right.
speak a lot, if you're on stage for a long period of time and you are tense, it all gets stuck right in here. So then when you
Yes.
finish, I find for myself that without doing those warm-ups, those exercises, When I get off stage, if I've had to speak for an hour, when I get off stage, I start to lose my voice.
That's such a great observation, and one thing in particular that you want to be aware of is good posture. So, I think of a spotlight and see? And by the way, you're not the only one. I have to remember, I have to remind myself, so I think of a spotlight in the center of my chest coming out to my audience. So immediately that raises my chest and my chin comes in. If I'm a little bit not in good posture, see my chin comes out, that creates tension. So we're after
Mm.
good posture and unimpeded passage of air through the vocal cords. That's how we create sound, right? If it's like this, that could create tension in the neck. So also too, as you're doing whatever you're doing for that hour, check your head a little bit. If you can move around, if you're on camera, that's a little difficult sometimes. So good posture is essential. I was just working with an actress who was about to open in a play, and she had a lot of um, emotional scenes, anger, a lot of, and she was yelling, right? And it was affecting her, and she had a long run ahead of her. She was just in rehearsals. So we really worked with the exaggerated open vowels, opening her mouth more, adding air before the phrases. As this is homework, right? You don't do this in front of people. It's like an athlete. We're training the body to have the impulses that we want so that when we're in performance, we don't think about it, right? Unless in the moment something serves you. But to keep the good posture, she also was coming like this to yell at the guy. So, no, by the way, this is more of a power position. And you can decide. I mean, you can do that, but be aware, oh, that might be straining my voice a bit.
Unless you're doing it as a character.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And
Yeah.
yes.
Unless you're doing
Mhm.
it as a specific character that's part of the body, is that the person has no power, so they're coming out at somebody. We have to take in all the information, but then know, how does this serve the character?
So true. And I'm just as you said that, it made me think of another young lady who I was working with who was very shy. She's an actress. And good. And I did not know, but she was trained in dance, right? But so one day we were coaching and she was working on Lady Macbeth. And so I just asked her to do it like, full out like Twyla Tharp, just any kind of crazy movement, whatever movement she wanted to do that she felt good in her body. And she started doing these beautiful, apparently she was a trained dancer. And oh my God, the power that she got connected to by freeing up her body and her mind without thinking. Sometimes we have an idea of how we think something should be played, or even it may not be so conscious, but once you get in your body and do that body work, sometimes it can really unleash so much power. Oh my God, so when I saw her do it, and actually there was another person, it was one of these semi-private groups I do, just two actors. I mean, it was astounding, the power that came through. I mean, it was riveting. So, yes, our bodies. And, another thing I want to mention is I always talk about this pitch and rhythm variation, to really, sometimes people at the ends of sentences do what I call vocal fry, and they go down at the end of sentence, and you miss the last part of their sentence. So if that's someone's habit, what they should work on is keeping that energy vocally, volume wise, at the end of a sentence, stay either on the same pitch or go slightly higher. Not a question, but so that they don't swallow their words and their energy at the ends of a sentence. Because otherwise, if they go down like that, you're asking your audience to work too hard to understand what you've just said.
This is wonderful. I'm thinking of, I have a one person show that I do, which has 20, I do 25 different characters.
Oh my goodness. Boy, would I love to see that.
So in the preparation of it, something that I started doing with two things, energy wise. When I started working on the show years ago, I would bring up a big bottle, well, a big glass, not bottle, but like a Stanley cup of Coca Cola,
Oh!
and midway through, I was done. I barely got through the end of the performance.
Wow.
I started doing hot water with lemon, cayenne pepper, and maple syrup. And I
Nice.
found, and correct me if this is not the proper thing to do, but I found, because I had all these characters I was doing, it was only me on stage for an hour and a half. I found that it helped me not only get through the performance, but it also um, helped keep my body open, because as I was
Mhm.
taking it, I felt like it was lubricating me.
Yes.
Can you explain, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? And how would you go about prepping yourself before you have a major um, period of time on stage, whether it's delivering a presentation, doing a one person show, doing a long monologue?
Mhm. First of all, I'm so happy that you're not drinking the Coca-Cola
No,
anymore.
no mas, no mas.
Because that, the first of all, the combo of the caffeine and the sugar actually races up everything and winds up depleting you. So really, I love that combination. It's a healthful tonic that you're drinking now, right? And so it's like, I mean, this may be too woo woo, but it's like drinking love, right? It's like you're nurturing yourself, right? And you feel that. And so it's so important. So, and that goes to answer your question even further. Before you have a performance, nurture yourself, whatever that means for you. Sometimes people want to take a nap, sometimes a bath, sometimes a long walk, sometimes really work out, or if I'm working, well, it depends. I mean, actually, actors and also my business people run in place before you get on stage just to energize the body and loosen up the body, get the air flowing, do some sort of physical movement. Put your head down, really release your neck and then roll up, really get in contact with your spine. And another thing is too, yeah, and eat well. If you find that you get nervous and you can't really eat a full meal before a performance, have something.
I think that is something that we don't really focus on, how important it is for the body and the voice.
Yes.
So when you're preparing, because we are athletes, I'm a big believer that as an actor, I'm an athlete. So, what are some of the foods that I should eat before a performance, especially if I'm doing a live a long piece of theater? If
Yeah.
you're doing Shakespeare, that's a long piece of theater that you have
Yeah.
to be geared up for. What kind of foods should I look toward, and what kind of foods should I stay away from? And is it like, should I prep 2 hours before, or is it the day of? Should I just really focus on uh, on foods that will nourish me and
Yeah.
give me the energy and the stamina that I need, as opposed to depleting me? So, like the Coca Cola, the Coca
Exactly.
Cola
Yeah.
would deplete me. I had no idea. And it went on for months until I said, I don't think I can do this. I don't know what the problem
Yeah.
is. And I had someone said, because of the Coca Cola, you cannot do your work.
That's it. And so, yeah, I mean, everybody's different. I find that for me, I like to have, even if it's not a meal per se, like a whole meal, and it depends on how I feel that day, but I will have some protein to keep my mind alert. Some people do well with carbs. I mean, and when I say carbs, I mean like something healthy, not a donut or something, not, I would avoid sugary things, kind of just what's healthy. And also I water is so important. I mean, really, I mean, drink water, it's the best thing for you.
Here's to water.
Exactly, yes. People are different, but usually dairy is not great just because it can create phlegm. That being said, my parents were performers, and my dad had a friend. He used to go visit his friend who became a star at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Um, and so, everybody says, oh, no dairy, right? But this guy, in between, acts, he'd be sitting in his dressing room drinking a glass of milk. So I guess that's just to say, like, you have discovered what works for you, and I really think that it's individual, what works for everyone. But one thing I do want to say too is, if you're going to be doing, for example, a one woman show, or if you're a different type of business professional and you have to give a speech, um, and you're going to be speaking longer than you normally do, you have to build up to it. I know when I was, I didn't do one woman shows every day, but when I had something coming up, I would do, like you said, like an athlete. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Incrementally building up your body so then when it comes to showtime, you have the stamina to do it, and don't expect to just run through it in the first day of rehearsal.
Right. A one person show is a marathon, and you have to start building that muscle leading up to the performance. You
Yeah.
have to start at least 6 weeks out to get ready. I think you maybe more, but at least 6 weeks out you have to start every day working the scales, doing your exercises, being careful of what you're eating, getting
Mhm.
your sleep, drinking plenty water.
Exercise is so important. Whatever works for you, whether it's walking or a good aerobic workout, to really, yeah, get that, so that you have the stamina to do a show.
Something that I've read and I started doing, I had read that runners before the night before they're going to run, they eat a lot of pasta. They eat a lot of spaghetti. I don't
Yeah,
remember where I got that from, but they eat a lot of spaghetti.
yeah,
And so what I started doing when I was doing my shows regularly, I would go to the Chinese restaurant, get the Chinese noodles, the with
yeah,
the vegetables. I would eat that like 2 hours before, and get myself ready with my little concoction so that I could be as good to go in the fuel that I was putting in. Not
very
this
good.
is different from the exercise. I'm talking about the fuel that you're putting in your body because
Yes.
we're prepping with our voice and our body, but then there's the fuel component.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really about nurturing yourself and your everything, right? So and that includes your vocal training.
And in the nurturing, you just said something which made me think about massages.
Oh,
How important are
sure.
massages to help you vocally?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get a massage, sure, get it. Absolutely. Whatever serves you, whatever frees up and relaxes your body. Absolutely. Yes. Of course, that's always beneficial to your good health, right?
So you have a series of videos on YouTube, which I really enjoyed. They were very short, but I found them to be very helpful. So I wrote some of them down. You have 8 of them that you give on online.
Yes.
And so I want to take them a little at a time so you can unpack them for us. Okay.
Sure.
So the first one that I have is don't rush. Breathing is important. and deep abdominal breathing is important. So, can you walk us through the not rushing process first?
Yes. A lot of times when we get nervous, we tend to rush. So, it's so important. A way to slow down is by using that open vowel method when you're rehearsing. Also, to really make eye contact with whoever you're talking to and make sure they're getting it. And pause. See, I did that on purpose. If I pause, it creates a change in the rhythm and it gets your audience's attention, right? And also it gives you a chance to breathe. It gives the audience a chance to breathe and take in what you've just said. Another way to slow down is to think of speaking to a child. So, and by the way, when I speak, when if I tell a story to a child, a lot of times I start putting more pitches in, more. If not everyone knows what pitches mean, it means different kind of notes, my musicality to my speaking. Because, and here's, I'm kind of jumping a bit, but it's just as it's occurring to me. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that speaking way lower than what their natural voice is and kind of in monotone, and that sounds more official and people will take them more seriously. But no, it's you really want to see. Now I'm adding more pitches, and so if I speak to a child, I first of all really connect to the child. I slow down. Immediately, I'm adding more pitches. I'm really curious, are they understanding everything that I'm saying? And so, those are ways in which you can slow down. The other thing is when we're rushing, you can be sure you're not breathing. So, right in the middle of a sentence, so anyway, take a breath in and out and release all of it. Get off that high speed train that sometimes takes over.
So, as you were talking about pitches, what came to me is the exercise to do would be scales, to do
Sure, yes.
scales to help you with pitches, especially if you tend to be monotone, to practice.
Yes, definitely. So you understand, how low does my voice go? How high does it go? In the exercises that I teach, we do the what I call the vocal gymnastics, where we do high, low, high. I usually start pretty simply, where as I showed you, hubba. So I'm doing hubba. So right away, I'm using my whole voice. Another thing you can do is you can actually sing your talk, so, or your monologue or your scene. I'm going to do my scene, whatever song comes in your mind. It doesn't have to be anything, it could be crazy pitches, right? But just to mix it up and start to, so that you're not in your habit of your box of how you see yourself or what's possible for you. You find so much more is available. By the way, I wanted to go back for a second, because one thing I wanted to talk about with the speech element, right? When we say the exaggerated open vowels and we go through the alphabet B through Z, I really articulate the consonant, and then the work is then to get my mouth open for that open vowel, so that when we're doing scenes, like for example, the young lady I had mentioned before who had a lot of angry yelling scenes, you can really use your consonants and not even raise your voice if you don't want to, or not that much, right? Or certainly not strain your voice. But I could say this to you and really use my freaking consonants. And so I'm using consonants as a technical thing you can do to create an emotion, and it creates it within yourself. Also, conversely, you can use your vowels to really, oh my God, create this wonderful feeling, by just then going to those open vowels and any kind of combination of those things.
And for people who don't open their mouth to speak, How valuable is it to have a cork or a pen or pencil in your mouth to help you articulate?
No, that's a really good question. And, I teach a certain technique. By the way, I'm going to just preface this by saying that this technique I teach was developed by my father, and I'll say more by that about that in a minute. But so that's what I teach, right? And I know that there are many techniques and many voice teachers that people find really helpful. I'm not for everyone, and vice versa, right? So we all have to find our people. And I know that those are techniques that are used. I don't use them, but I say if it works for you, do it. Do it. Absolutely. So, but it's not within my technique.
Let's take a little side street here and talk about your father and what he
Yes.
taught and how it got passed down to you, because this
Yeah.
sounds like it's a good story.
Thank you. I love to talk about, well, my parents, both my parents are performers and vocal coaches. But my dad started in vaudeville, and then he was in many Broadway shows, musicals primarily. And then he became the premier voice teacher to everybody at that time. Every studio executive sent their people to my dad. And because the technique really worked. It was based on yoga, deep breathing yoga techniques, and also the idea of yoga of freeing the whole body and the mind. So all of that mind and body are connected. It's very holistic. But also, my dad became a speech therapist and pathologist early in the field. Uh, he was invited to be at Cornell Medical Center in New York, uh, mainly working with rehabbing children in between their cleft lip and cleft palate operations. His mentor was a very famous ear, nose, and throat doctor at the time, Dr. Brodnitz. And so my dad wasn't a doctor. It was early in the field, but he knew so much. That he would lecture to the doctors weekly on his findings. And it could be any type of malfunction, people who had cancer or anything, nodes. And in some cases, you can help to rehab if you have vocal trouble with therapeutic techniques. But of course, you always have to check with your good doctor and follow their advice. But so this is based on, you know, real physical scientific principles. So I've actually worked with, recently, I worked with a man who he does a lot of speaking in his business, and he's a coach, and he just lost his voice. So we worked with that to add the air back and get some of the muscles, get in touch with swallowing and yawning, really getting in control of your larynx. That's a great exercise, by the way. If you're feeling um, tension in your neck, to put your fingertips on your larynx and first swallow, and you'll feel your larynx go up when you swallow. Did you?
Mhm.
Good. Now yawn with your tongue out on your lower lip just for extra credit. And you feel your larynx go down. And it's really important to get in control of the larynx. And if you're feeling tired vocally, that's a great exercise to do, to just do that yawning. It's like if you like, it's like if you ever do those meditations where tighten up the body, tighten up, and then relax. It's sort of that effect. I've started to do a documentary on my dad and on his journey with all of this. Anyway, I'm very grateful.
When did you get into acting? When did you know that, this is what I want to do with my life? I want to be an actor.
That's a great. Thank you for that question. It makes me very emotional because, uh, oh wow, I'm very really surprised. Excuse me. Um, I saw my dad, his last show on Broadway was How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, the original company. And I remember I was really little, and I remember all the details of it. I think I was 3. And all of a sudden, my dad stood up in the middle of the conference table and started singing. And I just had this impulse to run on stage with him and start singing with him. I knew what that wasn't cool to do, luckily, but yeah, that was my first. I just always there was that, and then actually, Lydia, it's really interesting because having two parents who were singers, as I started to get more self-conscious growing up as a kid, um, I felt like, oh, maybe I can't sing. I'm not as good as they are, that kind of thing, and held myself back. So I actually had to learn how to sing because, I didn't feel comfortable with it. So I think that's one of the things, too, that makes me a good teacher because I understand what that journey's like. But then I did apprentice with my dad and learned his technique, and that's what I teach.
That's my next question. At what point you're now aware that you want to be an actor, that you're going in that field? What made you decide, hey, I think I want to add this component to my career? I want to help people with their vocals.
Yeah, what happened was, I came to, I take acting classes and started acting and did some TV and some other things, and singing and theater uh and pounding the pavement, doing my thing as an actor, right? And my dad used to hang out in Central Park when he was just sitting on the bench that and I was walking from some audition, and I ran into my dad in Central Park, and he said to me, "Sweetheart, I have something on my mind. Sit down. I want to talk to you now. Don't get upset or something, but I'm going to ask you something." Um, or he said, "This has been on my mind. I think you'd make a really good teacher. You can continue your acting, but I just feel that you'd make a really good teacher." And I said, "You know something? I think you're right." And he was shocked because, I was at an age where, kids might, like you said, might say, "Oh, dad, come on," But I said, "No, I think you're right. What should we do?" He's like, "Come to the studio tomorrow and we'll start." So I went in, and as he was coaching people, he would say, "I'm doing this because of this right now, because they're experiencing this." And that's how it started. And then gosh, it didn't take that long. I started teaching, I think within that year.
What are a couple of things that you learned from your dad? Not necessarily the technique,
hmm
but life lessons or life skills that you use today.
My dad, I'll say a couple things we have in common, our positive attitude about life, to to kind of go on and laugh, and I mean, obviously life happens and we have our challenges, but to keep a positive attitude. I love to laugh, I love to have a good time. um, um, and also, I really love to help people, and really it's very meaningful for me when a student has a breakthrough, which happens daily. you know and sometimes they'll have something will click in, and they'll say, "Oh, well, that's not," and the thing is, even if it's the littlest thing, it's in that correct direction. So to me, it's always very exciting. I'm excited for them, to help create transformation in someone's life, to help them to be more freely themselves, and to be more open and express freely and communicate freely. It changes people, not just vocally. It changes them, and not just in their careers. You can't divorce the fact that it's you, so you show up differently in your own life.
when you start to put voice and body together, what I have found for myself in sometimes in using those tools, it it unlocks old pain,
Yes,
it
true.
unlocks old memories to allow you to see them and go, okay, now I can let go of that. I've been holding that in without knowing I was holding it in, and it was
Yes.
keeping me from moving forward. But now that I've hit that hit that note, so to speak, you your body vibrates. That's the only way I can describe it, is when you are doing vocal exercises and your body starts to vibrate, things start to come up and out.
I love that you've had that experience. That's so true.
And it can be a mental block, it can also be a spiritual block, or an emotional block.
Yes.
The benefits are that it releases a lot of stuff that you've been holding for a long period. I call it the baggage. You've been carrying
Yes.
the baggage deep inside of you, and
Yes.
sometimes you're not aware that that is the baggage you've been carrying, and then all of a sudden you're in a class or you're doing a private, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, what was that? What was that?
Yes, absolutely. So true. First of all, I love that you've experienced that. And yes, that happens a lot. And one thing, sound is healing. They use sound waves in medical procedures, for example, right? Now they do that, right? But sound is healing. And when you're creating that sound, it's coming from you. Yes, it frees things up that you weren't that there's no way that you would have known about, or maybe not no way, but but I think no way you would have known about it unless you have that physical experience.
You just reminded me of it, with sound. It is used in a lot of spiritual practices. So,
Yes,
um, it's like chanting, right? The Buddhists chant. The monks use the
the sound bowls,
yes, the bowls. That
right?
all that stuff, the sound is used in spiritual practices. The drums, so that it all some things are not uh verbal. Some
That's
things we
right.
can't put language to it. We use sound. It's like music. Music brings healing depending on, what the music is. If you're listening to classical, how soothing it is.
We're talking about sound and we're talking about healing. If you put it that way, you're healing your life, or you're it's just another tool to connect and center in and release the power that is you. We don't give you I don't give anyone anything. I just help people, like you say, unpack or unravel or release anything that might be standing in the way for free expression.
A few minutes ago, you spoke about how your father had a good attitude. He taught you, he gave
Yes.
you a good attitude. I want to talk about those self defeating attitudes that actors bring into the room, and how to start shifting your way out of that negative thought that you carry with you when you are doing vocal exercises.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I found a lot. I actually am working with someone who is in the business world, not show business. And he came to me because he was quite frightened of public speaking. One of the things that happens when we walk in a room and we're starting to feel like that is that all of a sudden we stop breathing, And we say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Oh no, it's happening again. Oh, what if I screw up? What if they don't like me? All that, like, that's where you focus, right? Oh, what if I forget my lines? Oh, what if I'm not prepared enough? Whatever, right? Then what you do, you take a breath in and release that out, and you do the work. You have other things to focus on. You shift your focus. I'm going to make sure I'm breathing during this scene. I'm going to make sure I'm fully looking at my scene partner. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to say this really slowly right now. And then I'm going to use pitches, or I'm going to, um, do a different rhythm thing and then do a slower rhythm, so that you have these other, I call it your toolbox. Should you need it, you can pick out what you need on the spot to shift your focus from the other thing. I remember way back, I was, there was some sort of class I was taking, and for some reason, that thing came in, right? Where I'm like, what the heck is going on? I was breathing shallowly, almost like I might hyperventilate. I'm like, this is a class, first of all, and but it started to come up, and it was a big moment for me because I just really focused on breathing. Like, I realized I was like, like, oh my God, like this. And then I was like, just sitting in my chair. I wasn't even working yet. And then I continued that when I did my scene in that particular class. And it made a big impression on me. And to this day, I hearken back to that moment where that clicked in for me. Oh, I can work on this. Or a lot of times I have people coming in for their sessions and they'll say all these things. Oh, of course, I'm terrible at this, or this, whatever. And I'll ask them to lie to me because what they're saying is a lie, right? But they don't know it. It's just what they're used to telling, the self-talk that used to what how how they're used to talking to themselves. So then I'll say, say this other thing. I love this exercise, or when did I become such a great singer, or something like that. And then the next thing, so for example, if we're doing an exercise, and then but I ask them to say it till I really believe them, because they'll be like, oh yeah, I love this exercise. Okay, yeah, and then but no, really, I love this exercise. And then they finally say it, and I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then they do it.
In that moment in your acting in your class when you started to hyperventilate, what came to mind for me was, in you talking about it, was that sense of performance anxiety. We're getting ready to do the work, and all of a sudden this anxiety takes hold of our body, and it just messes us up, almost to the point where we are going to self sabotage our work because we've gotten overwhelmed or overcome by this anxiety. Like, oh my God, I'm getting ready to go on. Am I going to be good? We go into that negative conversation that disrupts our flow and shuts us down almost, or gets our body so anxious that that we can't move. And so in that state, the best thing to do is what?
I think the most important thing is to breathe, really. The exhalation. Just, and you can even think of it as, I'm releasing all of this right now. I happen to be, for myself, and I know this isn't for everyone, but I happen to be a spiritual person. So I will pray. I'll be like, let me connect to source, or a light energy. I'm into that, right? Or you can just get connected. You say before you go on, right?
right, because that's where it hits you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Right, and
never
then once you're on
usually,
stage.
yeah, it's never usually where it's kind of like when you go in for an audition and all
Yeah,
of a sudden all the critics are in your head having a chorus and they're
yes,
just telling you how horrible you are. Everybody else is qualified, but you're not I mean, whatever the chorus is that is in your head to cause you to fail, you have to shut it down. I'm a praying woman. I
yeah.
will I will stop it and go, I send that back to the pit of hell where it came from. You cannot be here with me because greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world. I am not buying that lie. That is a lie. I thank you, God, that you've equipped me to do the thing I'm getting ready to do. I thank you, God, that I'm going out there because it's not me. I am just a vessel that you are using. And so use me, Lord. Let's go. Use me. Um,
Exactly.
and that the switching, because mindset is everything for an actor.
Yes,
You can
yes,
have all the talent in the world. You can have
yes,
taken all the voice classes, all the singing
yes,
classes, the dance class. You can do all, you can have years of training. But if your mind is thinking, you are going to go down in flames. So it is important to be able to and I love what you said because it sounds so simple yet we forget to do it, which is breathe, breathe, let it go. I always like to the exercise I use for myself is, you say I'm no good, I am fabulous. So as the thought, the negative thought that's coming in, I say it and then I go, I'm letting you go. Get the hell out of here.
yes,
and but it's how do you, as an actor, that is such a powerful tool to be able to hear
yes,
that comment, say it, and send it away. I banish you. I banish you. You can't be here. However, whatever words you need in order to regain control, regain your focus, get centered,
yeah,
and expel the lie because they're lies. They're lies.
yeah,
You don't know what you're capable of until you do it.
that's
And
right.
so to hang out in the, I don't know if this is going to work, I don't think I can do it, it's like stretching. Even if
Mhm,
all you did was stretch 1 inch, that's more than you did before. And
exactly.
to give yourself that pat on the back. Hey,
Yeah,
I did one more than I could before. I did a lap more than I did before. I did a vocal exercise one more than I could do before. It's
exactly.
giving yourself uh, the praise, the love. You talked about nurturing yourself. Those are
Yes.
ways to nurture yourself, to love on yourself. Say, oh my God, I did that. I actually took a class with Ingrid. Oh my God. And I didn't die. I did not die. There was no
Yes,
accident in the room. I
yeah,
actually completed it. Wow, what an excellent thing. And I think that also helps us in our craft is the vocals, the body, the mind. It's all connected. You can't act and I had an acting teacher who was very big on not being a talking head. He would
mhm.
always say, TV and film sometimes can be very detrimental to the actor because they get stuck in the talking head of it. And it's acting is never about your talking head. It is about movement. It is about,
Yes.
in life we're moving, we're doing things, but when we act we go, I just want you to know that this is, and we forget we disassociate our head from our body.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it is it is uh the reminder of the exercises that to do to bring everything together, the
Mhm.
instrument to bring it together. So when someone
Yes.
is in performance anxiety and they're
Mhm.
speaking it out, what can they do body wise to also help that word, that breath? What can they do in their body to uh, shake them up a little bit?
Anything physically, anything. I mean, like I said before, use your shoulders, add your head, check the back of your knees, depending on what the situation is. If you can walk around unless you're blocked a certain way, but and by the way too, you can do there. I don't know if you're familiar, but there was this jazz dance teacher in New York, Luigi, and his mantra was never stop moving, never stop moving. And so you would have all these movements for the warm up, but then when you're still, you still feel your body moving. So right before you go on stage or before you start to shoot something, that uh, suggestion of running in place, do something,
Yes.
do crazy dance, run around, do your head, touch your toes, whatever you can to energize the body and release the body before you go on.
Jumping up and down. I did stand up for many, many years. And every time before I would go on, there were two things that I would do. The first thing was when I would feel all the energy in my body, I would, instead of going, I'm anxious, I would go, I'm excited, because the
Yes,
body doesn't know the difference, right? The
that's it.
body can't tell the
Exactly.
difference between anxiety and excitement. But
Yeah.
I can uh give it a push. It's kind of
Hmm.
like, instead of actors saying, I have to do this audition, I get to do
Hmm.
this audition. How
Exactly.
fantastic is that? I get to do this audition. They called
Yes.
me to audition. Woo! Not, oh God, I got to do an audition again. It's like, you're an
Yeah,
actor. That is
yeah.
what you do. So do it, and do
Exactly.
it to the
Enjoy.
best of your ability. The other thing that I used to do in my stand up before I would get in front of the audience, especially when it was an audience that was not feeling any of the comedians, because that's when you start to panic, like, oh my God,
Yeah,
that so and so, who's a great comic, just died on stage, and I've got to
yeah,
follow that. I would just start
yeah.
jumping up and down and going, "Oh, this is so exciting! I'm so excited! I'm so excited!" And then
Yeah,
go on stage
yeah.
and just go with my energy and remind myself, I am the thermostat, not the thermometer. My job here is not to take your temperature, but to set the temperature. I am the conductor, and we are going where I want to go. Psychologically, it changes the room, because you're not. One of the things I learned, and I learned this through stand up, not acting, but through stand up, I learned that when you got in front of an audience, it was like, if you were scared,
Mhm.
the audience smelt it. It was like
Yes.
being in the water with sharks. And when
Yeah.
they smelt you were afraid, they would heckle you. They
Yes.
would just stare at you. It was never good to get on stage and go, I want the laughs, because they could smell that a mile away. But if you came on stage full of yourself and
Mhm.
just coming on stage to have fun, whether they
Yeah.
listened, whether they liked you, whether they went with you, it
Yeah.
turned the room. The
Yeah.
energy just turned. No matter
Energy.
how bad of a night it was before, where all the other comics went down in flames, if you came and you brought your energy,
Yeah.
your center, it changed the room, because everyone wants to be directed. Even in auditions, we don't have as many today because of the pandemic, but even in self tapes, if you bring yourself and you do your
Yeah.
work,
Mhm.
you will stand out as an actor. You know, in auditions, it's all about actors get in trouble when they are fearful. They come in the room taking the temperature of the casting director or whoever's in the room, and then you leave, "I didn't do well." But if you come in the room going, "I'm coming in to be of service. Let me try this. Let me see how this works." And then you leave, you have accomplished what you wanted. It wasn't about you, it was how could I serve the piece? And that's the same with self-tape.
I love that. That's so important how you won over a room, how you did that within yourself. That's really great. And one thing that I teach people, especially when someone's feeling insecure or shy, I have them be a character so that they're not themselves. You know, they're a superhero, they're whatever it is that the queen, the king, you know, that they come in and they're going to command the room. Like you're saying, you make that temperature. So then they make that temperature by being that person who is in charge, you know. And I have that too when I'm, especially if I'm doing a workshop, you know, with a large group of people or something, or whatever, you know, if I'm coming in front of a group of people, I love that you say be of service. That's exactly right. You know, I'm here to be of service, and I'm the boss. I know what I'm talking about here, you know. And I can help people, and that's what we're here to do, and to share and connect. And I love that. And so I think that all the things that we said about, you know, running in place, breathing, uh, the mindset. Another thing I wanted to say about winning over a room, which you don't need to know because you know how to do it, but I always give this tip. A lot of times, if someone comes out and there's, say, like one person, you know, sometimes there's like, you know, someone's like looking at you like, oh yeah, show me what you can do, or they're texting, or, you know, don't make that mean anything, and do not try to win that person over. You go, there'll be at least one person who's totally in your corner, and you start doing whatever your performance is or your talk to that person, and that creates an energy between the two of you, right? And then, oh, that person over there, oh, they're with us, okay, cool. Oh, now that person. And the next thing you know, people feel that energy and they want to be a part of it.
And even if it's only one person, even because that's where I used to get in trouble. I was
Yeah.
good in a room, two people or more. I was good. But if it was one person, I would freak out. Oh my God, it's one person. They're not paying attention. Oh my God, I'm not going to. And what I started to do, I started to practice to just show up with that one person, no matter what they were doing. And I think that was before I knew about setting the temperature. In my
Yeah.
mind, it was just go in there and, as an acting exercise, get them to look at you. Get
Good.
them, as an acting
Yes.
exercise, get them to look at you. Okay, they're playing with their papers, they're distracted. What can you do as the character reading this material to get their attention? You know how to do this on stage. You know how to do this when you're in front of a camera and an actor is not giving you what you want. Use that casting director to do the same thing you do with actors. That casting director is no different than the actor. They are your partner in the audition, they are your partner. So
Yes.
use them instead of, because for a long time I was disconnected with, oh, it's a casting director. No, it's your partner. Just like the audience, when I was doing stand up, the audience was my partner. And
Yeah.
so if I had somebody who was not paying attention to me, what did I know in acting? Oh, this is a three-person scene. So if this person isn't paying attention to me, I'm going to go talk to the other person to get this person to pay attention to me. So
That's right.
that
I love that.
you learn how to utilize the obstacle, remembering that acting is conflict, it is drama, and we don't,
Good.
that that's a gift. The casting director not paying attention to you when you walk in, what a gift. You got an obstacle, you get to use it. it
Love that.
is it is for you, it is for
Yes.
you to now use. We as actors sometimes we're not taught properly that uh we are not to be in agreement. Acting is not about agreement. And
Mhm.
when it's about agreement, the scene stinks. It stinks. So how do you use it to your advantage? Okay, you don't like me. Okay, cool. So I can either use it to antagonize you, that you don't like me. I can really just give it to you, or I could just stop and go. That's the pause. That's
Nice.
the
That's
pause
it.
you talk about. I'm
That's
just
right,
pausing and
powerful.
waiting. Are you coming to the table? Because when
Mhm.
when it gets silent, people pay
Yeah,
attention. You
that's
don't
right.
have to talk. Just give it a pause. I did this. I don't mean to hijack the conversation, but it just reminds me. Years ago, I worked with Marsha Mason when she was at the height of her
Oh
career.
my god,
I did
wow.
a I did a Neil Simon movie called Max Dugan Returns, and I was fairly young in acting. I hadn't been doing it more than maybe 4 years, but this was a big moment for me, and it was me and her, and
Wow.
we auditioned, and then uh, Herbert Ross says action, and and we go. And I noticed that she was so conditioned to just doing what she does that she
Ha,
wasn't really connected to the actors.
that's interesting.
And at least that's what it felt like to me. She
Yeah.
knew what she wanted to do, and she was going to go for her performance. So
Wow.
so um she's not looking at me. She had the first line, and she's not looking at me. So I just got quiet. And then
Ah,
she looked at me, and then I gave her my line. And then we
ah.
were in the scene. She had to
Wow.
deal with me. I didn't say
Yeah,
anything. I really didn't say anything. I just
yeah.
said, oh, this is interesting. She's in her own world. Oh, no, we're not having that. We're not having that at
Amazing,
all. And so when
amazing.
it was when we finished that moment, she came up to me. She said, "Who do you study with?" She said, "You're very good." I was like, "No, I just paid attention to you not paying attention to me. That was all I did. I just it was a scene. It wasn't a monologue. And even in a monologue, you have partners. The audience is your partner. So I just wanted to say that, because I think sometimes as actors, especially if we're just starting out, we get scared to
Yeah,
come with the goods with someone who is an established artist, someone who's been
sure.
doing it a long time. We think they're better than us, but when we're in a scene, we have to just be centered on who the character is and what we want. And that goes back to your breathing technique.
Mm,
Breathe, breathe, take a
mhm,
moment,
mm.
pause. I love that. I loved all the things you said in your short videos, but what I the weightiness of pausing, the weightiness of not rushing, and the weightiness of breathing, to me, are three uh tools that must be used every time you are performing.
Yes,
I think.
absolutely,
I mean, I
absolutely.
think those are your three super tools that you have
Mhm,
in hand. Pause.
mhm.
Why are you rushing? Where are you going? You're not rushing. So stop trying to rush. Yeah, that's not who you are. And if you are rushing, stop being a Russian. Just do the work. But something else you talked about is imitating what you're hearing and mirroring a person who's in front of you. And I want to know what those two components are, and why should the actor use those two tools.
Oh, I know what you're referring to. Yeah. So a lot of times I use that in for people, as an advice for people who are doing interviews, who are meeting one on one with people, the body language, it can really make someone feel really comfortable. Like, for example, uh, if someone's sort of like this, if you don't do it obviously, but they're like this, oh, you could be like this, right? Or you can even, if they're like this with their arms folded, right? You can be, you can make the choice to not mirror and to be a little more open by opening up your body and not crossing your legs or your arms. Or, what happens is subconsciously it makes them feel more comfortable and like you have something in common.
Ooh, okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
There's another thing that, as far as mindset, it's really interesting. There was one time I was meeting with someone, because, as you know, I work with business, not just actors, but also people in other businesses. And I was having a meeting with someone, and I wanted the meeting, but I started to meet with her, and I just kind of didn't like her. I was like, oh man, what? And then I thought, wait a minute, how can I turn this around? And I thought, gosh, I want to feel a connection to this person, so I'm doing all this as we're talking. And just at that moment when I made that decision, I heard that she had an accent. I hadn't heard that before. A very subtle Swiss German accent. And I have my dearest friend and friends, her family are from there. So, they're speak Swiss German. And so immediately, that happens. So there's so many things that we can do either physically by mirroring, or what, like we're talking about with our minds, and how we can shift things for ourselves on the spot.
How should an actor prep to work with you or another voice coach? Is there something actors should start doing before they come to you, um, to take classes with you?
Not really before. I did want to, though. I mean, I may answer your question actually, but I did want to say something as far as I find that sometimes people feel that, oh my gosh, I don't have the bandwidth or the time to devote to doing vocal warm-ups every day. I'm so connected to, my acting classes and getting acting work. And so they don't put that first, right? But I find that, and what happens is, if I'm working with someone, and I'll say, "What did you work on this week before we start?" And they'll say, "Oh, gosh, nothing. I just really didn't have time." And then I'll say, "Oh, but what about this? What about this?" "Oh, well, yes, I did think about opening my mouth and adding air." And, they'll think of these little things that they did. And I'll say, "That's the work." Because ultimately, of course, it's best to do a full warm up every day and to really get that into your body faster. But by doing these little incremental things, you are growing, and it is making a change. And the whole point is to assimilate that into your real life anyway. So I always, that was just something that occurred to me as we were talking, where people don't put voice lessons first. They think, oh, it has to be this incredible commitment. A commitment is great, but if you just have time to, for in my case, right, if you have time to show up to the session once a week, uh which is the ideal, that we're working weekly, that creates a change. So, as far as preparing before they come to me, you could work with some of the things I talked about today. Work in the mirror, dropping your jaw for the making the consonant and then the vowel, o, oo. You can practice adding air before you speak. You can practice those things on your own. Um, I find, at least how I feel, I like the support of a coach. I find that, I'm I'm a motivated person and I get things done, but I also do like the support that I get from a coach on whatever I'm doing, or if it's a project, working with other people. To me, that's helpful. Some people are real self-starters and
Yeah, no, I think accountability is important, and I think getting coached again. We're going back to the theory that we are athletes, where we are Olympic athletes as actors, and so
yes,
if we are following alongside the Olympic athletes, they have coaches for everything. They're not going in there by themselves. They have coaches that help them with their mindset. They have coaches that help them with conditioning, with endurance, it is a team. They have a
yeah.
team. And as actors, if we want this to be a life career, we have to think in terms of who is on my team. As an actor, I'm not by myself. And too many times actors fall because they're by themselves. No matter how good you are in your craft, if you don't have people coming alongside of you and saying, "Go, Ingrid, go," you're gonna lose heart. You can only self-start so much before you fall. And who's there to pick you up when you fall? A team of people that you have gathered, that you are saying, "Help me with this, help me with this, I need help to get to the finish line." So uh so in your courses, or how you teach, what are some programs that you offer that maybe can help that person who is watching this or listening to this?
Yes, I do work one on one mainly, but I've started I call it semi private groups for it's more affordable for people who don't, who need that support. And also, it's great because they're working with another person. So it's just two people, and that's for an hour a week. And so they, I'm sure they can find my email or,
Oh, we'll
reach me
have
through
it
my.
in the description.
Cool. So there's those two options, but also I wanted to offer your listeners a special gift from me, which is for the first 10 people that respond, I will give them a one-on-one complimentary hour with me.
You better come correct, people. Don't embarrass me. You better come correct with Ingrid. If she's going to give you an hour of coaching, you better do your work, because I will come looking for trouble. I will talk to you. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. And please leave us a comment. Let us know what you think, and share this episode with your friends. And don't go anywhere, because this next episode with Michaela Robertson on how actors should be podcasting is coming up, and it is awesome. Check it out.